The group project. We have all been there, right? It can either be this incredible lesson in teamwork or a total train wreck of conflict. Well, today we're going to do something a little different. We're actually going to crack open the black box of one team's project using their own completely unfiltered peer reviews to see what made it work, what caused all the friction, and what we can learn from it all.
So, how are we going to do this little autopsy? Here's the plan. First, we'll get a look inside the project itself. Then, we'll dig into the two groups that pretty much immediately formed, the builders and the coders. From there, we'll tackle the biggest hurdle they hit, that communication gap, and see how they handled giving feedback to each other. And finally, we'll piece it all together to map out the anatomy of this team.
All right, let's get right into it. The source material we have is just, well, it's raw, it's honest, and sometimes it's brutally direct. We're talking about the actual peer reviews from inside a single team project.
I mean, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Every single person who's ever worked in a group wants to know that secret formula. And by digging into the real, authentic feedback from this one team, I think we're actually going to get pretty close to finding some of those key ingredients.
So the data we're looking at is just this amazing treasure trove. It's all pure feedback from a team that was building a robot. And because it is completely unfiltered, typos and all, it gives us this incredible, authentic window into how collaboration really works. Okay, so let's get to our first big discovery. As we started sorting through all these comments, a really clear divide popped up, and it created these two totally distinct archetypes on the team.
And this slide just perfectly sums it up. On one side, you've got the builders, getting all this praise for their hands-on work. And on the other, you've got the coders, the ones programming the robot's brain. Now, this kind of specialization, it can be super efficient for sure, but it also plants the seeds for some pretty serious challenges later on.
So take Bisaya. Her teammates clearly saw her as the coding guru. Her work was essential, like a main pillar of the project. This kind of deep knowledge is so powerful, but as we're about to see, it can also create some really interesting blind spots.
And there it is. That's the trade-off. Because she was so deep in the code, other really important parts of the project, like actually driving the robot, just kind of got left behind. But what's really fascinating is that for another teammate, we see the complete opposite problem.
Meet Andon. He was the team's designated driver. He totally mastered maneuvering the robot, which is a huge skill. But the feedback for him was that he needed to level up his coding. You see, it's the perfect mirror image of Babase's situation. And it just shows how easy it is for these little silos to form when people just stick to what they know.
And this division, it leads us straight into the core problem for this team. And, honestly, for most teams, the communication gap. It was, hands down, the #1 issue that came up in all the feedback.
And the problem wasn't simple at all. The feedback points to this whole spectrum of issues. You had some people talking way too much and others not nearly enough. Some were holding back their ideas, while others just wouldn't ask for help when they were stuck. It's this really delicate balancing act, and when you get it wrong, it can throw the whole project off the rails.
Check this out. This is the classic dilemma. One teammate is gently told to, quote, just talk less, while another gets the feedback that she needs to communicate more. It's like the Goldilocks problem of teamwork, right? Finding that just right amount of talking is one of the hardest things to do.
And this is where things get personal. This piece of feedback is so powerful, it's not about workflow or being efficient, it's a plea for basic respect. It is a raw, very real reminder that words have weight, especially when you're under the pressure of a deadline.
And this slide shows us exactly how that plays out in a practical way. When one person tries to solve a super complex coding problem all by himself instead of telling the team about it, he's not just a hero trying to squash a bug, he becomes a bottleneck, and he ends up slowing everybody else down. So even with all these challenges, what's really fascinating is how the team gave each other feedback. There was this really consistent pattern of pairing genuine praise with very specific, actionable advice for how to improve. Let's look at a couple of examples.
Okay, first up is Nathan. His biggest contribution was his attitude. A teammate pointed out he was very enthusiastic and interested, which, let's be honest, is a huge asset for keeping team morale up. But that praise wasn't the whole story.
Right alongside that positive comment was this really concrete suggestion. His energy was awesome, but to make it really count, he needed to explain his ideas more clearly to the group. See, it's not just a criticism, it's a constructive way forward.
Here's another one for Pedro. He gets praised for being reliable and proactive. The guy who does what he's supposed to do and even volunteers for more. A really solid team player.
But here's the feedback, and it's subtle but so important. He's encouraged to step up even more, to go from being a reliable doer to a more active participant. And that's the difference between just doing the work and actually helping to drive it forward.
And I absolutely had to share this one. In the middle of all this detailed feedback, we found this little gem, keep in it. It's misspelled, it's simple, but it is just so perfectly human. It's this raw, genuine burst of encouragement, and it reminds you that at the heart of any project, it's just people trying to do their best.
Okay, so we've looked at the roles, we've dissected the conflicts, and we've analyzed the feedback. Now let's put all the pieces back together and actually map out the complete anatomy of this team.
This slide just pulls it all together so clearly. You have your specialists, the builder, the coder, the driver, and each of them has these obvious strengths, but also pretty predictable blind spots. But then you have the all-rounder, the person who helps connect the dots, but is encouraged to be a little more assertive. What this shows us is that every single role is crucial, but every role also depends on all the others.
So what's the big lesson here? What's the takeaway? It's that a great team isn't just a bunch of talented people working near each other, it's a carefully balanced ecosystem. You need the deep expertise from specialists to get the job done, but you absolutely have to have open communication and constructive feedback to act as the glue that holds it all together. Without that, you just have a bunch of skilled people working alone.
And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. As you look at this breakdown, the builder, the coder, the driver, the all-arounder, think about your own experiences in a team. Which one of those roles do you usually slip into? And maybe more importantly, how can you be the person who helps bridge some of those gaps?